Hello and welcome back to American Classic Tour TV. I'm your host, JD Conroy, and on today's episode, I've got some very exciting news for you all, and that is, folks, the world is reopening and American Classic Tours is returning to travel. Starting with our mini mystery tour in July, all of our tours from July through December through the end of the year are set to operate. So to celebrate our return to travel after a long year of social distancing and lockdowns that we've all had to endure, we want to offer you a very special discount. We're calling it the On the Road Again discount. Save $100 per person per tour on any 2021 motor coach tour and $200 per person per tour on any 2021 air tour when you make a reservation by June 1st, 2021. This discount, folks, is only valid for new reservations. On today's show, we're going to preview a sampling of tours that we're offering in 2021. But before we get into the tour previews, I just want to let you know that over, I'd say, about the last month and a half, the phone has been ringing off the hook here at American Classic Tours. In fact, I was talking to my dad yesterday. My dad's the founder and president of American Classic Tours. He's been running American Classic Tours for 34 years. He said that he thinks the last month may have been the busiest month in our company's history in terms of new reservations and phone calls coming in. So I'm sure you've heard people talking about this concept of pent-up travel demand. Well, we're certainly experiencing that here at American Classic Tours. And the only reason I tell you all of this is that if you're interested in signing up for a tour in 2021, if you've got cabin fever after being in your home all year, make sure you make your reservation sooner rather than later, because some of our tours in 2021 are already sold out and many are close to being sold out. So again, make sure you make your reservation sooner rather than later. Okay, let's get on to our preview. If you're looking for unforgettable scenery, big open skies, and a step back in time to the Old West, you'll want to join us on our Black Hills and Badlands tour next year. Some highlights of this tour include Badlands National Park, where wind and water erosion have carved an eerie world of deep gorges, saw-edged spires, and grassy-topped buttes, creating a fabulous painted landscape. Hear about the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868, Custer's expedition to the Black Hills that started the gold rush of 1874, Jack McCall, Calamity Jane, and Potato Creek Johnny on a guided tour of the historic western town of Deadwood. Travel scenic byway 14A to Spearfish Canyon, where some scenes of the movie Dances with Wolves were filmed. View Bridal Veil Falls, Little Spearfish Falls, and Rough Lock Falls. Travel to Custer State Park and check into the State Park Game Lodge for a 4-night stay. This historic lodge served as a summer White House for Presidents Coolidge and Eisenhower. Take a buffalo jeep ride into the backcountry of Custer State Park to observe the largest buffalo herd in North America. Keep your eyes open for bighorn sheep, mountain goats, antelope, deer, elk, and turkey. And we'll visit the Crazy Horse Memorial. Next, we'll make our way to one of the most iconic places in America, truly a bucket list item, or should be a bucket list item for every American, and that is Mount Rushmore. And this tour also features a guided tour of the Black Hills, where you'll see Iron Mountain, Needles Highway, Keystone, Sylvan Lake, and more. Next up, we have our Grand Tetons, Yellowstone, and Glacier National Parks tour. Now, we call this tour American Majesty because it is home to some of America's grandest, oldest national parks. Now, this tour features 3 national parks. The first is Grand Tetons, and if I were to describe Grand Tetons in one word, I would say it is picturesque. It's home to probably the most beautiful mountain range in North America, the Grand Tetons Mountain Range. While we're at Grand Tetons National Park, we'll take a float trip down the Snake River, we'll take a gondola ride to the top of the Rendezvous Mountain, and you'll have plenty of time to explore and shop in the upscale western town of Jackson Hole. Next, we'll make our way to Yellowstone, and if I were to describe Yellowstone in one word, I would say it is wild, okay? Yellowstone is wild in 2 ways. First, it's home to some of the world's most unique or wild geothermal features, such as the Grand Prismatic Spring, Mammoth Hot Springs, and of course, Old Faithful. But it's also wild because it's probably the best place in the continental United States to see wildlife. We'll be on the lookout for bison, elk, otters, wolves, and more. And then we'll make our way to our third national park, which is Glacier National Park. And if I were to describe Glacier in one word, it would be mighty. While we're in Glacier, we'll take a ride on the Going to the Sun Road. We'll enjoy magnificent scenery. We'll be on the lookout for wildlife such as grizzly bears, mountain goats, and more. Coming next fall, we have our Columbia River Cruise, and I love this tour. I think the Columbia River Gorge is one of the most overlooked travel destinations in all of America. The Columbia River is America's most scenic river. It is home to towering green river bluffs, majestic mountain ranges, picturesque river views, and the best part of this tour is the vantage point through which we will take in all of this beauty, and that is the American Queen Steamboat Company's opulent American Empress, a beautiful cruise vessel which will be traveling along for this entire tour. The American Empress is known for its elegance. From its sophisticated lounges to its lovely dining areas, the American Empress takes you back in time to experience one of America's oldest travel traditions, the luxurious riverboat cruise. On board, you'll enjoy gourmet dining, world-class entertainment from the Empress's elegant show lounge. You can listen to lectures from the American Empress's resident riverlorian to learn about the river's history, wildlife, geology, and more. Take in the Columbia River's stunning scenery and wildlife from one of the Empress's outdoor decks. And of course, you'll enjoy comfortable accommodations from on board the ship. So I led this tour back in October of 2018, and one of my favorite memories from this tour was waking up each morning, grabbing my cup of coffee, and heading out to my private veranda balcony where I could sit and watch the sunrise over the beautiful Columbia River bluffs while I enjoyed my morning coffee. It was just amazing. In fact, I miss it. I hope I get to lead this tour again in 2021. Let's take a look at a map of our tour. We'll fly into Portland and we'll stay just outside of Portland for our first night in Vancouver, Washington. The next day, we'll board the American Empress and we'll actually head west to the mouth of the Columbia River where the river meets the Pacific Ocean at Astoria. Then we'll begin our journey east on the river through Stevenson, the Dalles, and the Tri-Cities all the way to Clarkston. And from Clarkston, we'll journey by land to Spokane, where we'll fly home. Some highlights of this tour include a guided tour of Portland, and Portland is a pretty city, and it's especially pretty at this time of year as the city's hills and bluffs are covered with colorful fall foliage. We'll visit Portland's Chinese Garden and its picturesque Portland Rose Garden. And of course, while we're in town, we'll have to try some of Portland's famous Voodoo Donuts. This Portland donut shop has become a sensation due to its creative and sometimes PG-13 donuts. We'll visit Astoria, Oregon. This small town is an absolute hidden gem. It sits where the Columbia River meets the Pacific Ocean, and we'll go to the top of the landmark Astoria Column to get an amazing view of the mouth of the Columbia River. You'll be standing right here, taking this exact picture you see here on your own camera if you join us on this tour next year. Astoria is more than just pretty scenery though. It has a fascinating history. In 1805, Lewis and Clark and their expedition party, after a year of traversing across North America, they were making their way down the Columbia River. And as they neared the mouth of the Columbia River, they noticed a subtle tide. And I'm sure they looked at one another and were overcome with a feeling of euphoria, knowing that they were just miles away from their goal, from their destination of making it to the Pacific Ocean. Unfortunately for Lewis and Clark and the rest of their team, the euphoria did not last long. What they were hoping for when they arrived at the Pacific Ocean was that they would be picked up by a ship that would bring them home. Well, this turned out not to be the case. They were stuck in Astoria for the winter of 1805, and they spent this brutal winter at Fort Clatsop, which is pictured here, a small log wooden fort. And it was right here that Meriwether Lewis committed himself to writing in detail about their great expedition west, all the plants and animals they came across, and the different Native American tribes they met. As we journey back eastward on the river, we'll take in some awesome sights on our included premium shore excursions. We'll see Multnomah Falls, Mount Hood. We'll tour the Bonneville Lock and Dam, the region's first hydropower source. We'll travel through the Hood River Valley's scenic Fruit Loop. We'll visit the historic Bee Reactor and other important parts of the Manhattan Project National Historic Park in Richland. And we'll take in the Nez Perce National Historic Park before we travel to Spokane to fly home. Another great option for you fall foliage lovers is our Rocky Coast of Maine tour. The cornerstone of this tour is Acadia National Park, and folks, Acadia is probably the best place in America to visit during the month of October. It's home to picture-perfect rocky coastline, and you're not gonna beat its beautiful fall color. This tour is also filled with charming coastal New England towns like Camden, Booth Bay Harbor, Kennebunkport, Bar Harbor, Portland, and Portsmouth. We'll spend the last couple of days on this tour in Boston, where we'll tour the historic Freedom Trail to take in Boston's rich history. And if you're like me and you love lobster, you'll have a couple chances to have a lobster dinner on this tour. A Southwestern Christmas in San Antonio is my favorite Christmas tour that we offer each year here at American Classic Tours. I just love this tour, and I'd say that there are 5 reasons why. Number 1, I'm a sucker for warm weather. It's right at around this time of year in early December that where I live in Chicago, the weather starts to become really cold and uncomfortable. So I love getting away in early December to San Antonio, where the temperatures are much nicer. In early December, temperatures in San Antonio average in the 60s. So it's real nice, comfortable weather. Number 2, this tour has an amazing laid-back pace. Now, what exactly do I mean by this? Well, first of all, we stay all 4 nights of this tour at the same hotel, the Holiday Inn Riverwalk, which means you only have to unpack your bag once. I find that our travelers really enjoy tours like this that are 5 to 6 days long, where we stay in just one hotel throughout the trip. Our hotel on this tour is located right on San Antonio's famous Riverwalk in the heart of downtown San Antonio. And because of this central location, we include plenty of free time on this tour for you to explore downtown San Antonio at your own leisure, which leads me to the third thing I really enjoy about this tour, and that is the famous San Antonio Riverwalk. The Riverwalk is one of America's most unique attractions. It is lined with lovely shops, historic hotels, top-tier restaurants, and bars. It's an enchanting destination to visit, especially at Christmas time when the Riverwalk is covered with holiday lights. And folks, just take it from me, I've been there 3 times during Christmas. These photos don't do it justice. It's really hard for photographers to capture the beauty and the lighting of the Christmas lights over the Riverwalk. As I mentioned, you'll have plenty of time to explore the Riverwalk at your own leisure, but we also include a guided cruise on the San Antonio River. Number 4, this tour features premier attractions. I remember when I first went on this tour, other than the Alamo and the Riverwalk, I didn't quite know what to expect from the attractions. After I led this tour, I remember coming back and talking to my dad and Mary Pelk at our office saying, wow, you know what? This tour might have my favorite collection of attractions of any tours we offer. Our tour will begin with a visit to the famous Alamo. Here you'll learn about one of the most dramatic stories in American history, the Battle of the Alamo, as you explore this historic fort and you watch the entertaining and informative IMAX movie, The Price of Freedom. We'll also visit the historic Mission San Jose, located just outside of downtown San Antonio. This mission was built in 1718, and if you love history, you'll love visiting the Mission San Jose. It's one of those places that has been so wonderfully preserved that it literally feels like you're taking a step back in time as soon as you step in to this historic mission. We'll visit the Briscoe Museum of Western Art to see some of the Southwest's best works of art. We'll take a day trip out to Texas's beautiful hill country, where you'll visit one of America's hidden gems, the lovely little town of Fredericksburg, Texas. This German town has a fascinating story and a charming main street which is home to lovely shops, craft breweries, and wineries. Fredericksburg, Texas was also the home of Admiral Chester Nimitz, the great American general who led the American effort in the Pacific during World War II. Because of this, the National Museum of the Pacific War is located in Fredericksburg. And folks, this is one of the best museums in the entire country. I'm sure many of you have been to the National World War I Museum in Kansas City or the National World War II Museum in New Orleans. I would say that this museum, the National Museum of the Pacific War, is on par with those 2 great American museums. There's 2 attractions on this tour that stand out, in particular as just being very fun. I'd say these 2 attractions are 2 of the most fun attractions we offer throughout all of our tours throughout the entire year. And the first is the Wyo Ranch. This massive ranch in Texas's West Hill Country is home to over 58 species of exotic wildlife. It's so cool. What we do is we get in this big vehicle and we off-road on the beautiful hills, and we see all these exotic wildlife species such as water buffalo, giraffes, zebras, and more. Now, the second attraction that I think stands out for being especially fun is San Antonio's SeaWorld. And this visit is not just any visit to SeaWorld. What we do is our group gets a private tour. We go on one of the days that the park is closed, and we get this backstage behind the scenes tour. The members of the staff give us this guided tour where we get to see sea lions, we'll see orcas, beluga whales, otters, seals, and more. It's such a neat attraction. And the fifth and final thing I love about this tour, folks, is margaritas. It's funny. Each year I've led this tour, I've led it 3 times. I always remember having good times drinking margaritas with our group. One of the many places you can try a margarita is at our dinner at the lovely Mia Terra restaurant. The ambiance of this restaurant is so neat. It's elaborately decorated, especially at Christmas time. You're gonna love our visit to Mia Terra. The Rose Parade is America's signature New Year's celebration. Since 1890, Pasadena has ushered in the new year with this great tradition. For many people who for years have watched this parade on TV, seeing it in person is a dream come true. To usher in the new year in sunny Southern California, watching the incredibly intricate flowery floats, the equestrian teams, and the marching bands pass by in person is an experience every American should enjoy. This tour also features the best of Southern California. We'll visit Catalina Island, a beautiful island sitting about 20 miles off the coast of Southern California. With its sharp golden cliffs, its iconic marina, and its bright sunshine, visiting Catalina Island will make you feel as if you were in the middle of the Mediterranean. We'll enjoy a guided tour and a gourmet dinner aboard the historic Queen Mary. This is a gigantic retired British ocean liner that sailed primarily across the Atlantic from 1936 to 1967. We'll visit the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library and Museum on a stunning mountaintop in Simi Valley, California. We'll learn all about the life and presidency of Ronald Reagan through the museum's awesome exhibits, and you'll also have a chance to step aboard the retired Air Force One right here at the museum. We'll take a guided tour of Los Angeles where we'll explore Hollywood. We'll walk the Hollywood Walk of Fame. We'll visit the Chinese Grauman Theater where so many of Hollywood's biggest movies have premiered over the years. We'll visit Dodger Stadium. We'll see the Hollywood Bowl, Walt Disney Concert Hall, and more. This tour also features a behind-the-scenes tour of Warner Brothers Studio, and it's really neat to go behind the scenes and see how your favorite TV shows and movies have been made. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. If you've not done so already, make sure you check out our YouTube video, the top 25 best national parks to visit in the USA.